Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Melbourne Mahaprabhu Mandir ki Jai. Assembled devotees ki Jai. So I'm not going to speak very much nowadays. It's getting a little bit difficult. But I'm going to open it with a little story that Prabhupada told me. We were in Hyderabad in 1976. Somebody gave Prabhupada a small picture. So we were staying in this kind of simple cottage. There was a sloping roof. The back of the roof kind of came to head height. There was an almirah there, just where the slope met the wall. So Prabhupada asked me, he said, now put this picture on the top of the almirah. So I went there and I was trying and getting it in, and I just couldn't do it. It wouldn't fit. Somehow or another I was thinking, the gap's not big enough, it won't go in. So Prabhupada was watching me, and then after about a minute, he said, you do not know. And he got up, he took the picture off me, and he went, doop, and it was in about 2 seconds. He fit it in. I was trying to figure it out for about a minute or so. So then he laughed and he sat down again. He said, you know the story of Columbus and friends? So I said, no, Srila Prabhupada, I haven't heard that one. Hoping that he would tell it. And so he did. So he said, Columbus and friends. This was after America had been discovered. So they were sitting and talking. So they were saying, actually, Columbus, anybody could have done that. No big deal. The ships were there. The land was there. Just get on the ship, sail over the ocean, you'll hit America. What's the big deal? So he was saying, no, actually, it takes some intelligence. So they said, no, what intelligence? So he said, I'll show you. So he took an egg. So he said, now, make this egg stand on its end on the table. So each one of them, they took the egg and they were trying, and it kept falling over and rolling over. So at the end of it, then Columbus took the egg. He tapped the end of it on the desk. It flattened the shell, and then he stood it up. So then they said, oh, anybody could have done that. So he said, no, but the egg was there, the table was there. I did it, you didn't. So in the same way, he said it takes a little intelligence to do everything. So Prabhupada was not the first one to be told to go to the West. Yeah, the West was there, the philosophy was there, practices of Krishna consciousness were there. And, you know, to all intents and purposes, anybody could have done it. Some people tried, but they didn't succeed. But when Srila Prabhupada went there, then Krishna consciousness took root and spread all over the world. Everything requires a little intelligence. The same facilities were there, but Prabhupada was the genius that knew how to use the facilities that were provided to fulfill this mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we're all very grateful. We're here 40 years on, still going on. And hopefully we'll be here for another 40 years, 40 lifetimes, or eternity. Actually, we're celebrating this festival, 40 years anniversary. Seems like a long time when we look back and see those pictures of those changing bodies in reverse. Now you see the end result. It's not so pretty. But the fact is that this festival is going on in the spiritual world at every moment. There's no 40 years, there's no 60 years, there's no 100 years. There's no anniversaries. Every day is a festival. Every, speech is a song, every gate is a dance. That's the reality. We're in the illusion of thinking, we made a lot of progress, 40 years. But that's only in reference to our material bodies. The spiritual reference is everything is eternal. One moment is equal to all of eternity. That one moment that we're aware of Krishna, we're doing our service to Krishna, that is eternal. That stays with us. No matter what the condition of these bodies, the condition of the planet, whether it's ruled by kings or rascals, it doesn't matter. Yeah? We're here to go back home, back to Godhead. to get out of this illusion of thinking that this world is real. And Prabhupada gave us the key to do that. Prabhupada gave us the means to make our life successful in this one lifetime. So our gathering here today, we were just recently at the Vrindavan temple opening, 40 years, same thing. And, you know, it was interesting to see all the old faces, Saurabh Prabhu, Gananava Prabhu, Guru Das, Guru Kripa, they were all there. It was a wonderful occasion. And we'll have more and more of these festivals in the next few years because there's so many deities and temples that Prabhupada opened, especially from the early 70s onwards. So there's, you know, going to be this rolling anniversary festival, you know, route. And the more we participate, these are to remind us of what we really are. Yeah, it's a milestone in one sense, but yesterday, today and tomorrow are all the same. There's no difference that today is the anniversary, yesterday wasn't, tomorrow won't, you know, is a day on. The activity remains the same. Yeah, as Prabhupada said, we'll have another ISKCON in the spiritual world. That was his intention, to take us all back to Godhead. We just have to grasp the moment. So this is a momentous occasion in one sense, but it's momentous from this point of view that it reminds us of our daily business, our ongoing business from moment to moment, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, week to week, year to year. 40 years, 50 years, whatever it may be. But the key thing is to be engaged fully in devotional service, to be fully concentrated on the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I was looking at them this morning. When they were installed in 75, they were the biggest brass deities in ISKCON. And they're so beautiful. I don't think I've seen any Gauratai as beautiful as these anywhere in the temples that I visited. So Prabhupada was so kind that he persuaded Lord Chaitanya to come here and be worshipped, you know, by the Malechas and Yavanas and the fallen souls of Kali Yuga. We do our best, but this is all practice, it's training. Yeah? And if we're lucky, if we're fortunate, if we hang on to Prabhupada's lotus feet, we'll get to the point where that second of engagement is all eternity. We haven't realized it yet, but that's actually the fact. So we're, you know, practicing. 40-year anniversary, it's a good opportunity to concentrate, remember what Prabhupada has done for us, but also to renew our determination and vows to continue on the work that Prabhupada started. Yeah? Like Columbus, Prabhupada was the pioneer. Back to mention this morning that now we have some of the pioneers here. But Prabhupada was the real pioneer. He's the one that went out on his own, you know, and started everything up. Amazing. I mean, just, it's not going to be repeated ever, what Prabhupada did. And we were so fortunate that we participated. So, this is Bhai Barbie, developed, stand up. After order you. Yeah. She is the architect, the designer of this wonderful temple. She did so much service. And I think we should mention also a special thanks to His Grace Madhvisa Prabhu. He did so much service in the early days. He was the one that decided we must have some kind of a headquarters in Australia. We were looking in Sydney, we looked in Melbourne. Somehow or another this place was found. He worked very hard, and especially with Bhai Barbie in designing this whole setup here. And really it was from his efforts that we got truly established nicely in Australia. So I'm going to let Bhai Barbie tell a few stories, or whatever you want. So thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki.
I've been trying to remember a few specifics. two problems to remembering the details. One is old age. The other is the fact that we were exhausted. We didn't sleep for days on end, so when Prabhupada actually came, we died, So my memory at that point became very dull. But I can remember some details of, not necessarily when Srila Prabhupada was here, but also connections. And I was looking at the deities and remembering Sri Gaurangita's arrival in the crates. When we drove in today, first time I've been back in a long time, we drove around the back with that big wall there, and immediately I saw the crane. We had a crane back there, we lifted the boxes over, and then how to get them from the wall to here. And we scratched our brains and finally figured round logs would do it. And so we had logs, and people would take the back log and bring it to the front and take the back log. And that way the cases were brought towards the temple. And they gradually were set in place. I remember the fact that we're trying to get the floor finished. Remember that, Hare? We were desperately trying to polish the marble floor, but it wasn't going to happen in time for Srila Prabhupada's arrival. So we had the opening of the bare, unpolished marble floor. Everything was a little bit of a shambles. Everything was late, everything was complicated, but somehow or other, a magnificent event happened. I wonder if you want to know how it was that Radha Ballabha got his eyes. That's probably a secret, no one knows very much. It was I don't know the name of the festival, you might be able to remind me, but there's some festival where Krishna wears eyes, special shank, conch eyes. And this festival came up, so Madhavisa and I were discussing, and we thought, well, we have some eyes, someone brought them from India, let's put them on Krishna for this occasion. And the next day we thought, well, let's leave them on a little longer. About a week later, I said, okay, we have to take them off now. So took them off, and suddenly Krishna, he shrank. Prabhupada called him Radha Ballabha because he said that Radharani was so gorgeous, that Krishna was so attracted to her. She was more beautiful than Krishna, he said. Now Krishna had become more powerful than Radharani. There was a competition going on. So we realized that he became diminutive without his eyes. So we discussed, and Madhavisa said, let's put them back. So in that way we returned the eyes, and I don't think they've ever been taken off since, have they? He has a very great mystic power with those eyes. And then Lord Jagannath, the special thing about him was, Madhavisa and I, what on earth were we doing? Conspiring in so many ways. We calculated that this Ratha-yatra festival was returning to Kurukshetra, therefore the Lord had a right to wear his armor. So, do we have any of that armor, or photographs of that armor we made? Somehow or other we carved these amazing, massive helmets and gloves and all kinds of things.
You can see him in the slideshow tonight.
Oh, really? And then it's a system which I've never seen outside of Australia. I tried to find it in America, but I couldn't. It was called metallizing. We found a place, we could take it, we put it in this huge machine, the guy zapped it, and it came out gold. And that was the way we did the huge Gorni tie. Are they still around? It was a Lord Chaitanya only, right? The Gorni tie was in California. Big, yeah. So we made him in parts. We had, sorry to say, we had to cut him up. We put him into the machine as it would fit. We zapped him and then we put him back together again. And on that Ratha-yatra, Prabhupada was established to be sitting on Subhadra's cart.
Balaram's cart.
Balaram's cart?
I was on the cart waiting for him to come on and he didn't get there. He walked instead.
Right, that was the point, that I was also on that cart then, I guess. Yeah. And of course I was exhausted and falling asleep, but I got to have the chamara, and then I was thrilled because Prabhupada was going to be on that cart. But then when he saw Lord Chaitanya, he couldn't get up on the cart, and he danced the whole way. It was amazing.
Bird's eye view of him dancing the whole way. I was throwing flowers on him at the time, throwing gardenias down, which was to Krishna, and then Prabhupada, and then Trista started throwing them back to the cart. It was a very special event.
Was that the Ratha-yatra where they, prior to that, they had the fire?
That was
Yeah. We were, Dwight must remember that place. He was a musician who sang there all the time. We had, where was that place, Dwight? Little Lonsdale Street. It's a nice place. We had so many events. And we used it for sewing the covers for the Ratha-yatra cards. We had these old Singer sewing machines, I believe. I remember, and we had the canopy, and I was sewing away. And somebody ran in and shouted, "There's a fire next door." Ran out and saw all these people hanging out of the window, flames behind them. So we got the idea, let's take the canopy out there, hold it, and they can jump. I have no idea how many people, it seemed like so many people, they were jumping, one after another. The canopy held them nicely. Then the last one, she was pregnant, but by then the flames were really behind them. Was it 2 or 3 stories? Wasn't it 3 stories?
I think it's 3 stories.
3 stories high. It's quite a huge jump. So finally we were shouting, "Jump, jump, please jump." And finally she got the courage up, and as she fell onto the canopy, it split, but she survived, okay. And then I was standing there, I thought, okay, let's take advantage of this. It's Ratha-yatra, my wily ways. We had not any money to publicize Ratha-yatra. I think Hare knows the secrets of how we managed to build the carts. All sort of wheeling and dealing went on.
That's hard to say.
No, we're not going to remember those parts. But somehow or other, those carts were built magnificently. But we had no money for publicity. So in those days we didn't have cell phones, believe it or not, but there was a phone box just up the road. I ran up the road, got the number of the local newspaper, called them up, and I said, "I just saw the Hare Krishnas rescuing all these people, jumping out of a burning building." And I ran back and was ready for the interview when they came. So that was front page headlines, and the Ratha-yatra was well publicized and well populated, very successful event.
You didn't arrange the fire, did you?
I wouldn't put it past Hare, sorry. I remember that crazy place to buy a piano, Little Lonsdale Street. We used to have puppet shows there. We had great puppet shows. I remember one particular one. My memory is so faded, I just come up with spurts of occasions. But we had this Mrigari the hunter. No, it was the one touching the head. Demon. Vrikasura. And I used to make the puppets, and we would put it on during the Sunday feast. So we had this puppet, Vrikasura, and he was going to have his head blown off. So we got little Chinese banging thing, crackers, firecrackers. And we made a hole in the back of his head. So we figured that, when it came for his head to be touched with his little hand, someone would come up the back with a match. And only problem was no one really knew which way the firecracker blew, whether to go in or out. So we thought, okay, well, we'll have to experiment first of all before the event. So we took him outside and we got a match and we stuck a firecracker and we blew his head off. Now we didn't have a puppet. It was really exactly what Rikasura had done to himself. So then we gathered all the pieces together. Some were not insubstantial, and we ran upstairs into that building where we had some sort of kitchen. There were spices there was cinnamon and cloves, and there was flour. So we stuck him back together with flour and water and pasted all the cinnamon. It looked really grisly at that point, better than he'd ever looked. And by now we knew how to put the firecracker. So at the end of the drama, we lit the thing. It blew up spectacularly into everybody's meal. Because they were eating prasadam. Those are the kind of things I remember. I'm not sure they're very philosophical, but they were fun memories. Gee, what else? I remember something about the small Radha Krishna deities. Never quite understand the details, but in the other place, where was the other place? They were stolen. Remember that? They were stolen, and we had people running all over the place to find them. And finally they were discovered and returned. And then the following morning, because I used to do the deity worship, I came down and they were gone again. How is it possible? The door's locked, everything's closed up, they've gone in the middle of the night, I put them to sleep, now they're not there. No, I didn't put them to sleep that occasion. I'd gone away. And so I ran up to Balaram's room, woke him up. Krishna's been stolen again. And it turned out that was the beginning of the first time they put him to sleep. They had a bed, and no one had bothered to tell me. So the whole temple was in uproar. Second day, Krishna was sleeping. I got to sleep extra that night. All these strange stories. I do remember this marble floor. We had an amazing schedule. Madhavisa set up, which was probably the most extreme schedule, which was totally unreasonable. Because we had no one to help with the pujari work particularly. So I used to get up at 3:15 because I had to take a quick shower, go down and get the offering ready at 3:30, offered at 3:45, Arti was 4 o'clock. But the night before, I had not gone to bed hardly at all, because we used to dress the deities for night dress after the evening Arti, which was very late. I think I finished about 10:30, then I would come onto the floor. I remember sitting right in front of the altar there, between 10:30 and 11, trying to say Gayatri, and then waking up about 2 o'clock in the morning, paying my obeisances, frozen stiff, crawling to bed until 3:15. We did that. Our life was like that. It was totally ecstatic. I had been told that Srila Prabhupada only slept 1.5 to 2 hours a night, so our job was to try and imitate that. We did our best. But it was totally wonderful. We were always tired. We would go to Sankirtan, do the whole deity worship, a whole morning program, and take a quick breakfast and go out on Sankirtan. And the bus driver, of course, we'd get on a bus, go downtown. The bus driver knew me well, knew where I was going, and let me go to sleep, shake me, wake me up, and then on the way back, same thing. Out on Sankirtan all day, and then come back at in time for a quick shower, and then evening deity worship in class. And then we never got a second to be in Maya. And really, we were very happy. We were very, very joyful. And you know what I see these young people here? That's the one thing which really thrills me to see, that this mood is continuing. I was a little concerned, that maybe it's changed, and maybe this Melbourne temple is kind of a little tired, but wow. I'm joyful to see that everybody's kept that same mood. I'm so happy. And that the deities are the center of everything. That's the secret here, I think, in Australia. First of all, that Australia was all one temple in my time. I'm not sure how that is now, I have no idea. But the second thing was that everything was centered around deity worship and service to the Lord. And I can see that it persists. And I'm so grateful to you for that. So appreciative.
Can you tell us something about how you did all the design for the temple and everything?
Oh, okay.
For those of you that don't know, Bhairavi designed everything that you can see here. The columns and the decorations, the altars, the gates, everything. It's all incredible.
You better watch me though, because I'm kind of redesigning now. I'm thinking this temple needs to be wider, so let's take out the center part. Widen it, expand it. You can easily do it, take an arch. Leave the arches there, just cut through. And gee. Actually, I think I had the ideas and then I left all the work to Gunavati.
No. You had all the ideas upstairs. Thousands of pages of drawings. I used to look at them.
I have no idea what I did, but I do know that we had limited opportunities. Now, of course, you just Google everything up. It's very simple. You can even Google up the people who can do it for you. In those days, first of all, I'd only been a little bit in India. I hadn't really known much about artworks. I'd gone to the local Melbourne library, nothing there. And in fact, after we made these columns, I designed this column, and then, who was it? Bhaskara. And, yeah, they did the labor on it. And then after we were making it, and then a Srimad Bhagavatam arrived. The first one, we didn't have books so much in those days. And then right on the front cover was this exact column. And I remember Madhavisa saying, "Super soul." And it had to be, because I had no visual reference anyway. Somehow it came out. And then, of course, how to do the details. We only had facility for kind of funky Greek or Roman things. And so it was a bit of a combination of things, no real Indian style, but we did our best and it came out good. And then we got up on some sort of scaffolding and painted in color. Are you going to repaint? I would do one and Gunavati would follow because she had the determination and I just was the artistic one who didn't have the staying power. So I did one and she would continue it. And then the gates, again, we have all these beautiful things in the area similar, so we combine them to do something a little Indian. It worked, looks good. And again, I can't say anything about the way you've maintained it. You've done a magnificent job, thank you. It's not been neglected, it's maintained, and now you're even going to repaint, that's wonderful. In this film, that back didn't have arches on it.
Actually, it was only the front by Bobby that you did, and then later,
You repeated it.
during Balaram's period, he wanted that duplicated right throughout the temple.
Ah, that's what happened. And the paintings, I don't know, I did paintings, I have no idea what I painted. I came back and said, wow, there's some paintings, they look like I did them. Ram Prashad too, yeah. That's mine there, I think. Actually, when Srila Prabhupada first came, it was in Sydney, and they were showing him, I guess I'd done some paintings there, and they were showing him, and Prabhupada said, she should not do deity worship, she should paint, and she should make our temples look beautiful. And then immediately, Deepak left. So I was doing 7 offerings and 7 artis a day. Dressing the deities, putting them to sleep. But actually, I've had that, personally had that opportunity to do that, because when my husband, his visa problems, this and that, we ended up going back to America, and so I was able to do some artwork in the Berkeley Temple. And then we went to Utah, being able to build a temple there from scratch, which is nice. I hear you're going to do one in Queensland, and I pray that it will be gorgeous too, because building a temple from the ground up is very, very attractive for people. It brings so many people. And this next month we're starting building in another temple up in our area in the city. So that way I'm engaging in what Prabhupada said I should do.
And very well. This was the first one that she did. She did Soho Street, she did Berkeley Temple. If you've been online to the Utah Hare Krishnas, I was there for the first time, was it 2 years ago? We visited. An absolutely fabulous temple there, huge place. I mean, tens of thousands of people come for their festivals there. So Bhargavi's got a whole long list, as long as your arm, as they say, of places that she designed and decorated. So she's really, Prabhupada knew the right person, the right engagement.
I guess that was some sort of blessing.
Yeah.
She should do this.
Yes.
That was empowering. Thank you very much, Prabhupada. I will.
Hare Krishna. Got no qualification to be up here after Bhai Barbie. It was just a powerhouse always. And, we were like mere mortals compared to Bhai Barbie. I just wanted to share this with you because I wasn't here. Actually, I was in Bombay serving Radha-yatra Hare when that temple was open. But I was there in 1973 when Srila Prabhupada installed Radha Vallabha in Burnett Street. And I had the presence of mind that when Srila Prabhupada did the arti, he, of course, all the articles were sent around, and he offered a white carnation. So I took 2 petals of that white carnation. They're now very mouldy. And I put them on this old piece of paper. I just wanted to, because I'm going to pass it around. These are leaves that Srila Prabhupada stepped on in Centennial Park in '72. These are rose petals that Srila Prabhupada stepped on here in Melbourne in 1973. These are the 2 here. This is Prabhupada's toothbrush. And these are the two petals that Prabhupada personally offered to Radha on their installation. So I was just going to send that
I'd
around.
like to make a suggestion that before you pass that out, you put a track in place.
No, I'm going to trust the mercy of the devotees to return it to me. And just for good measure, I'm going to send around Srila Prabhupada's bead bag, which, as you'll see, is very well repaired. In these days, you just get something, if it's ripped, it's thrown out. But there you can see that devotees have very devotedly sewn up Prabhupada's bead bag. So I just wanted to pass them around, and if everybody could touch them to their head, and please return them. Thank you.
Well, by Barbie, she was, I was one of her lackeys in the beginning. And we were discussing it the other day, how doing the Ratha-yatra cart and all the things. And one of my stories was my favourite stories by Barbie when we were building the 3 carts out the back. That Barbie had the ingenious idea to test the canopy. And, of course, like she said, she didn't always do, she sent other people to do certain things, and she was a genius. And she said, Sukla, sit on that canopy and see how it goes. And I'm being hoisted, into the air at about 30 feet into the air. She's going, just move it to the left, move it to the right. And it was an ingenious, and Madhavisa comes out and he just looks, he goes, what are you doing? I said, it's by Barbie. He goes, and he just looked and shrugged his shoulders and walked away. So and many of those puppets I actually helped paint, and all the ones she blew up. So we have a lot of common. And when we were building this, I'd been in New Zealand at the time. I was Hipajari there, and it was everyone had left the temple, and my brother and I had been sent to New Zealand and Vijayaranya to basically do everything. So like by Barbie, I did 6 artics, I was the only Brahmin, 6 offerings, 6 artics a day, cooked everything for about a year and a bit. So Madhavisa's, I used to do Prabhupada's room every time he came. I was in charge of always cleaning his room and that. So I'd been away and Prabhupada was coming back, and they were opening the temple, so he said, come over. So he invited me. It was like my little break. Well, actually, I ended up staying here in the end. But so I got here, and this place was just, the floors needed polish, Gunavati's up on ladders, and we all ended up painting bits here and there. But the Vyasa-san, interestingly enough, I probably should have brought them down. I used to always do all the cushions on the Vyasa-san and all the asanas in Prabhupada's room and that. So that Vyasa-san, the purple one, I actually do have those 2 cushion covers left. Sorry, you may get them. But I actually, did all the covers for that, so it was interesting to see it again. And so I was busy doing the Vyasa-san, helping painting here. I remember Madhavisa was out the back, with a shovel, digging up where the brick were trying to be done. And so that was really busy. And then I was up doing Prabhupada's room and getting it all together. I was making all the asana cushions. And, we used to have 2 sets of asana cushions. And whenever Prabhupada came, you'd wash one during the day, and then, the next one would be put on while he'd go for the morning walk. I have lots of stories from Burnett Street in the morning walk, but I'll just stick to this period at the moment. So we were doing the room and everything. And so what had happened after, there was chaos, we were all up for hours and hours, and I'd got Prabhupada's room all sort of organised and set up, ready for him to come. And the toothbrushes, we used to have to go to the park and look for twigs. He used to have the eucalyptus twig. And so someone had gone to the park, and we got the toothbrushes all in order, everything was all set up. And so everyone had gone to the airport. They said, Madhavisa was always, I was always had to stay behind. It was like my thing. So because I was arranging the room and everything, I stayed behind with Kurma. And we had the mission was that Madhavisa had the ingenious idea to decorate the whole altar, the whole temple with coloured lights like they do in India. No one had ever seen anything like that before, and everyone was up putting coloured lights up. So when they all went to the airport, I was, racing down. Kurma was busy cooking, and so I had to stand. My position after I'd finished the room and everything was to stand by the window of the Prabhupada's room. And the moment Prabhupada walked in the gate was to yell to Kuma to turn the lights on. So I stood there, vehemently waiting for Prabhupada. I'd got everything else done. Prabhupada was coming and, and there was no mobile phone, so you'd hear that they've left the airport. So Kuma's cooking like a maniac, and I'm standing by the window diligently watching. And all of a sudden we could see the van sort of pulling up. And I see Prabhupada just opening the door. Madhavisa didn't open it for he made sort of proper, it was like a surprise, box, and Prabhupada sort of opens the door. And I said, Kuma, Prabhupada's opened the door. And he switched the lights on, and the whole building lit up in coloured lights. And Prabhupada's face just went, and he just was absolutely, and he just stood there looking with this smile from here to here on his face. And he just stayed for a long time, and it was just really spectacular because no one had done coloured lights on buildings. It was sort of, only in India could you have seen it. So Prabhupada just absolutely adored it. And I came racing down the stairs to let him in the door, and, he opened the door and he'd go, Hare Krishna, very, very nice. And so I went back up the stairs. But I used to do all his washing and things, and Baba was talking about how things disappeared, And one really quick story was when we were in Burnett Street, and I actually got initiated the day Radha Ballava were installed. Prabhupada actually built the fire. They were there. It was lots of stories. That's another whole thing. But it was the first time I'd actually had to do Prabhupada's washing, and right after initiation, I washed it, and made the mistake of cooking, Ambika's talking about her. Where is that Prashadam there going? And I'd done the washing and accidentally made the mistake of putting the silk curtain on the line. That was a big mistake. Next, about an hour later, I come to find the curtain to get it all ironed and back to Srila Prabhupada, and someone took it. And so my first great, this was pretty much the first time Prabhupada had come after my initiation. I'd done the rooms. We'd have a few times with Prabhupada a few days before he came back early and it was another whole story. There's so many stories. But anyway, so I had to actually go and say, the curtain's been taken. And that wasn't a really good way to start off, right? But anyway, I said to Shreddy Kirti, someone's taken Prabhupada's curtain. It was a huge drama. No one was going to fess up. And to this day, we have no idea who took it. I would like to know who actually took it. I do have one of Prabhupada's curtains, but I was given it. It's not the one. And so from then on, Prabhupada said, from now on, all her clothes are... Was it you? Okay. From now on, all her clothes are going to be... Nailed down. Oh, no, it wasn't nailed down. That's right. Well, that was the whole thing. Yeah, I could go into all the stories about that Rath cart, but we won't. Anyway, so I had to do it. So then Prabhupada said, from then on, and this is the policy from then on, you iron his clothes wet to dry. And they were never left my sight at that point, so it was a bit of a story. But yeah, anyway, after Prabhupada had come in the night, the coloured lights were on. It was about 9:30. It was late, and there was all I remember, messes of, because Limca was, the thing at the time. But we couldn't get Limca, so there was hundreds of bottles of Switch. This is Madhavisa's idea, not mine. Bitter lemon, and the feast. We had this feast till like 11:30, 10, 11 at night, and it just went on, and the feast and Prabhupada was up just, laughing and very joyful upstairs. So anyway, there's a lot more stories, but that was just the beginning of the actual opening of the day Prabhupada. The night Prabhupada arrived was very special. And the rest of the day. And I'd like to also say how absolutely exquisite the deities are looking, and how much Prabhupada would be absolutely ecstatic about it. And Madhavisa, I was with Madhavisa the day he died, actually. So he always talked about Australia. That was his fondest thing. And this was one of his greatest achievements. So thank you. Hare Bol.
Waiting for our meditation. I want to introduce another devotee that did some special service right now. Stand. This is Ratha-yatra. In 1972, when Madhavisa came to Australia, the first thing that he decided we should do for the preaching was to have a Ratha-yatra. He had been involved in San Francisco in the big Ratha-yatra processions, making the rats and organising. So when he came here, he decided we should have a Ratha-yatra. But the Jagannath deities that we had, I remember the ones in Sydney were so small that when you had a big wampa stump of kirtan, the whole floor would vibrate, the deities would fall over. Too small. So in order to have a proper Ratha-yatra, we had to have big Jagannath deities. So 2 devotees were assigned to making these Jagannath deities that you see here. They appeared here in 1972. Dwaipayana was one with Deepak Prabhu, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about the making of Lord Jagannath. Yeah, Jagannath Swami ki jai.
Well, what happened was I was a young Brahmachari. I fortunately got initiated in Sydney in 1972. The Temple President Mohananda was such an enthusiastic young redhead devotee, and he got this idea, got this double-decker bus and stripped all the seats out of it and wrote the big red sign, the positive alternative, on the side of it. And by his enthusiasm, the Sydney Temple was full of brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. And then a bit later, Madhavisa came. Mohananda, he did a lot of service, but something happened and he left. But that's another story. Then Madhavisa came. He was also very enthusiastic, and as Hare story says, he was so into Ratha-yatra and chanting. So we've got to have a Ratha-yatra. We all brahmacharis pile onto this double-decker bus. We're going down to Melbourne to have a Ratha-yatra. In those days, we used to have the Ratha-yatra about the same time as in India. In India, it's a summer festival. That means in Australia, it was a winter festival. So we pile onto this double-decker bus. We drove down through Canberra to Melbourne. I remember one night we stopped outside Canberra camped in a field somewhere where there was some kind of toilet, and we bathed in this river. So cold. It was so cold. We all dived in the river to have a morning bath and then chanted the Guru Vastakam. Anyway, we all came down to Melbourne to put on this Ratha-yatra. We had no money. The Melbourne Temple was this tiny 2-storey, what do you call the houses? Terrace house. We all piled in there. We had no money. We used to have like semolina flavoured with orange peel for breakfast. And somewhere or other, as we explained, we acquired all the materials. And anyway, the problem was that Lord Jagannath was so small and no one could see him. Somehow or other, I had in the back of my mind somewhere, I wouldn't mind, if I could carve Lord Jagannath. I didn't say anything, I just thought it to myself. Then the next morning, Vaibhavi came up to me. I was sitting at the bottom of the stairs at the temple, and Vaibhavi came up to me and said, "Do you want to carve Lord Jagannath?" So that's super soul. So me and Deepak were assigned to carve Lord Jagannath. So the next problem was you had to find pieces of wood big enough to carve Lord Jagannath out of. So Deepak did all the groundwork. He went all over Melbourne to all the wood yards, and he found... normally they cut up the logs when they're green and cut them into smaller pieces. They don't save big logs. It's not a common thing to save big logs of wood. But Deepak found this wood yard where a log had been burnt or something and it was left lying there, and he said, "That's it." And he got them to cut up. We did discussion about the sizes, and he got them to cut up into the sizes, and we brought them 3 blocks of wood to this Lonsdale Street we were talking about. And upstairs in Lonsdale Street, we partitioned off part of the back part of the upstairs part, and no one was allowed to go there. You know, the story of Lord Jagannath, the original appearance, you know. Only me and Deepak would go there. And we did the original basic shape we cut with a chainsaw, and the rest of it we did with hammer and chisel. Every day we go there, chisel away, chisel away. And some or other, it was like these 3 blocks of wood. It was like Lord Jagannath and Balaram and Subhadra were already there inside. We just had to uncover them. So, fortunately, we had a very ecstatic time. I revealed the form of Jagannath and Subhadra, and Deepak did Lord Balaram. And and that's how we carved Lord Jagannath. And then I think it was Deepak's wife painted them. Nataki, yeah. And maybe Shamananda helped her, I'm not sure. Anyway, we did the carving, and then they were painted hurriedly in time for the first Melbourne Ratha-yatra.
Please, can you tell us about Little Gordy?
I don't have any stories about Little Gornitai.
There was some story that there were cast in that cloth.
No, that was another. That's not this Gornitai. They're in Brisbane now. They were on a travelling bus for some time, but Bhaskara formed them. The story in the tape of Prabhupada's Remembrance, Bhaskara gives the story about how he formed them and carved them, cast them, sorry.
Father that died behind the kitchen.
Yeah.
And anyone that had gold or jewelry, real put in, whatever rings or whatever we had put in, I had a gold ring, I threw in, everyone threw something into the fire for it. It was a very long event.
Then we had a crucible, poured the sound. And I believe that the large Gornitai here, when they were put in India, I heard that after they were made, the mold broke, so that there are only ones cast. Usually when you have a mold, you can repeat the one you produce, but in this case they're totally unique, no others were made.
It was so heavy they had to float them down the Ganga. That's the other big story.
Yeah, solid. Yes. Anyway, later on I can tell some stories about Gornitai, but I think it's getting closer to breakfast time. Hare Krishna.